We're going live right now. Rolling. It'll put this way. You were close. You were close. There you go. It'll do it on its own, I think. You just got to give it time.
You got this. You got this, Jesse.
Thank you, and welcome tonight. Welcome to our year 4 of Cold Case MHS and year 3 of our public presentation. We really appreciate you being here to see what the students have done over the year, and hope that you enjoy the evening. I have a lot of thank yous to give out, but unfortunately there's so many that I can't go through all of them, but I'm going to hit the highlights. First one is the family and friends that we make them. Without them, a lot of this stuff we would not have information on. And it's got to be difficult for those families to open up to a bunch of high school students and a teacher. But we have had many family members that have opened up their hearts, opened up their minds about the case. And in these cases, a lot of times those are the only people that are still thinking about it. So they have been gracious enough to give us the information and talk to us. We had a family that came in last night that was really overwhelmed with the work that the students did on the case, and that's one of the reasons we do this. The other one is law enforcement and other professionals in the field, prosecutors, other lawyers, coroners, and many other people, podcasters, media people, who have given us their time to explain to us how they gather information and what we can do to gather more information for our cases, and we really appreciate their help. The other one is our administration. Without our administration, we wouldn't have this class. It took a little coaching to get them to do this, but we had to get some famous people in the crime world and kind of call people and say, hey, it's okay, they're going to be fine. So I really appreciate all of their support along the way. Without their support, we couldn't do this. Quick note, I do want to point out Alexa Doll. Alexa Doll is one that you hear on that video. She has written and performed that song, and actually, she said she did this in her bedroom, which that's pretty impressive if you can make it sound that good. But she wrote that song for our podcast, and we really appreciate the fact that she did that. Also, I need to thank Mr. Alan Young. Mr. Alan Young is a drama teacher, English teacher, and a film teacher who helped me with the video camera and the live streaming and things like that because I'm not very good at that. So he helped me out with that, and I really appreciate his help. The last one are the students, and we would not be here tonight without them. And I know that we've had our ups and downs all year, had to kind of push a few a little bit harder at times. But, well, we got there. And the thing about it is that they have really worked hard, especially over these last few weeks to get ready for tonight. And I really appreciate all that they've done. It really makes me happy every day coming in and seeing all these students and the work they put in. So I really appreciate all that from all of you. Our goals of the class was, one, we wanted to create a real world experience for students. Something that they could invest their time and their heart into, and something that they had to work hard at. And that was one of the reasons why we did this. And we wanted them to develop skills along the way that they could take with them. This all started with a student of mine 5 years ago. We were sitting in class talking about cold cases, and we said, that would be kind of neat if we did one together. And when we started it, he started figuring out all the technology stuff and how to find people. And next thing you know, we're talking to friends of the victim, we're talking to police officers, and we were talking to the county prosecutor. And I thought, what a great way for students to learn how to communicate and how to organize your thoughts and how to create something from nothing. Because when we start this, all they know is the victim's name, and they have to go out and find out the information. So that was one of the goals, was to develop those things. The other one was empathy. We wanted to develop empathy in our students because many of us have been through tragedies, losing loved ones in many different ways, but not many of us have ever had to go through losing a loved one in a violent crime like you're going to hear about tonight. So we wanted the students to be able to communicate with those people, be able to ask those questions, but do it in a way that is courteous to them, understanding that they are going through a really difficult time. And we wanted to create that and have them show that emotion towards those individuals. But most of all, we wanted to get the stories back out on these victims. Many of these victims, you're going to find out, they may have had a rough life. They have lived one that may have put them at higher risk, but that's not the reason that they went through what they went through. And many people only know their names because they were a victim. We're going to try to put a light on the fact that these victims were real people. They had real families, and they should not be remembered for what happened to them, but we remember who they were. And we would like to get these stories back out because they have fallen into the darkness of a file cabinet somewhere. And we're hoping that just getting this information out through our live stream, through our website, through the podcast, that maybe the right person will hear it. And maybe they'll be able to give that information to the police to maybe turn this case around. So that was the main goal. As we go on, you're going to hear the students talk about persons of interest. Okay, when we say that, that does not mean we're accusing anybody of these cases. We are not professionals. We are not pointing out who we think did it. What we're saying is that person of interest is somebody that probably just needs to be looked at again and talked to. And that's based on the information that we have gathered or what was given to us. We know that there's a lot more information out there, and somebody knows that information. And we also know that the police departments cannot give us all their information. But we are asking the students to use their brain and say, who do we need to look at and why? And maybe the police need to question them again. And again, we're not accusing anybody of that. Some of them will change names in their presentation because we want to protect the families that are involved. We also want to protect the possible persons of interest. so that people don't wrongly accuse somebody of committing a crime that maybe they had nothing to do with it. So some of these presentations will change names as they give them to you. After the presentations, if anybody in this room or anybody watching on live stream knows any information about these cases, please contact the local police department that is working on those cases, because they've been sitting in that file cabinet for a really long time. And somebody out there knows something. And if you do, please let them know. If you're not comfortable with doing that, contact us and we will make sure that the police get that information. We can be reached on social media, we can be reached on Facebook, we can also be reached on the internet, with our website, and through our podcast. So we really appreciate if you know anything that you please do that. Couple side notes, if you need to use the restroom, if you can go out this door and go all the way to the end of the hallway, it'll be on your left. Only reason is there are bathrooms right next door, but if you go in there while they're presenting and flush the toilet, we can hear you. So, don't really think you want that to happen. So, if you can go down there, that'd be great. All we ask is when you come back, you kind of look through the door one, either come in quietly because the doors are kind of loud, or if you could wait until the group is finished and then you can come in. Also, if you have to leave early, we understand that. Just if you could go quietly or in between presentations, we really appreciate that. The other side note is for the people watching on live stream. Because of the camera and so forth, the individuals they'll kind of go in and out. It'll go dark and then light and so forth, and it's all based on what's behind them. So please keep listening. They are there, even if you can't see them. So we appreciate that. Without further ado, we're here to listen to the students, and here is our first presentation.
We began our investigation with the case of Angela Lee Hanoi. As we progressed in her case, we realized that the extent of the investigation did not end with Angela and reached far beyond our original scope of the case. This led to our investigation of many Springfield, Ohio cold cases with similarities.
We aim to speak out for the victims that cannot and provide peace and closure to the victims' families. We understand that for the families of the victims, these cases never go cold. The victims that we will discuss today are not in any order of importance in our presentation. We organize them based on the dates their bodies were found.
As podcaster Shane Waters stated in Unbeliefs and Madness, podcast episode 121, the victims will speak for are those that society unfortunately labels as girl-raping. These women are the 40 to 42 million prostitutes and the 50% of people listening to using drugs worldwide. Many overlook their deaths because of the risky lifestyle they live.
They were all found around the same area as Springfield, Ohio, thus leading us to believe that their deaths could be an act of a potential serial killer.
While the murder rate among prostitutes is 40 times higher than the murder rate of women in the general population, we aim to highlight the fact that the lifestyle that these women fell into does not define how they should be remembered.
I'm
Alan Jones. And I'm Jesse Kleiber, and we researched the Springfield, Ohio cold cases. This map shows 11 out of 13 victims that will be missing today. The others were found in alternate locations. This transition shows the victims that were found within the time frame of 1981 to 2006. They're found outside of the inner circle that contains the majority of the criminal activity in Springfield, Ohio. In addition to most of them being found the date of or soon after the year our main suspect was born, we decided not to discuss more about them within this presentation. However, we would like to note that these women's deaths are not of any less significance.
Out of 13 victims, 3 victims were most closely connected due to their similar physical characteristics. Angela Lee Hanoi, Angela Kilgore, Mary Kilgore, and Buffy Jeffrey.
While their height and weight varied, they were all Caucasian female that had light hair and light eye color. Buffy Jeffrey was 29 years old, Angela Marie Kilgore was 37 years old, and Angela Lee Hanoi was 35 years old.
Case 179 belongs to Buffy Jeffrey. While we sent the FOIA request, we do not have any current information on her background.
Case number 176 belongs to Angela Marie Kilgore. She graduated from Catholic Central High School and received her associate degree in nursing from Clark State Community College. She worked a number of years as a nurse in nursing homes. Case number 152 belongs to Angela Lee Hanoi. According to her sister Carrie, Angela was a normal teenager and enjoyed to have around. She cheered for Shawnee High School in Springfield, Ohio, and was known as a feisty girl that was not afraid to speak her opinion. After she graduated, she went through rehabilitation for crack cocaine addiction numerous times and was involved in prostitution. Her stepfather, Johnny Heisey, said that she, quote, had a hard, rough, and turbulent life.
During research into the case of Angela Hanley, we interviewed her daughter Jessica Hanley and her ex-partner Jason Hicks. We wanted to gain insight into Angela's personality and who she was as a person. They emphasized she was more than a prostitute and a drug user.
She was very fun, like very outgoing, had a very bubbly personality. She was like just always, she was very talkative and very loud. She was a homemaker though, like she cooked a lot and like from scratch, and she cleaned. She was a clean freak, so that really kept her busy.
She was pretty much a stay-at-home mom. You know, she never really had a very strong work history. But don't get me wrong, the kids were always well taken care of. Supper was cooked, house was always clean. She was a very caring and loving mother. She loved her kids.
This map shows where Buffy Freeman, Angela Kilgore, and Angela Hanley went missing and where their bodies were found. Buffy Jo Freeman was last seen July 11, 2007 at approximately 11:30 p.m. near the intersection of Schaefer and Main Streets. She was later found partially clothed on July 12, 2007 at 3:26 a.m. She was found in Snyder Park near the clubhouse. This is a picture of an autopsy diagram of Buffy Jo Freeman. She was sexually assaulted, but we will go into more detail about her injuries later on. But this diagram shows that she was badly injured. However, her cause of death was ruled unknown because she was run over by a patrol car, thus causing additional alterations to her body. Angela Kilgore was reported missing on November 11, 2007, and last seen on October 22, 2007 at the Fairfax Motel on East Main Street. Her body was later found on April 24, 2008 in the cistern behind the Brandon House on 506 Grant Street. Springfield police officers said they did not suspect foul play, but it was not like her to go away without contacting her family. Angela Hanway was missing for a couple of months before she was found. It was reported that she last stayed with her family approximately 18 months before she went missing in April, and she was last seen late January of 2008. She was found partially clothed, without eyes, and badly decomposed, floating in Mad River on June 10, 2008, near the 2300 block of Dayton Road.
This photograph includes Lieutenant Christopher Schultz, who was talking about the location Angela Hanley's body was found, or the river, and how it's based solely on eyewitness testimony.
You'll see Forest Lake is there, and Mad River runs right underneath. That is one of the spots. That's a primary spot where we believe that she was killed and dumped in the river. Although we have no evidence from that location. That is solely eyewitness testimony.
Dental and medical records were used to determine Angela Hanway's identity. According to newspaper articles, Angela died a very violent death and she had been in the water for some time. As a result of her death being deemed undetermined, we began to research the water current of Mad River to determine the distance that she could have floated from a given location. Using data from the United States Geological Survey, we found that in early June of 2008, Mad River had a flood stage of approximately 11 on a scale of 0 to 12. According to Lieutenant Christopher Schultz, in early June 2008, the area of Springfield, Ohio was flooded with massive amounts of rain, causing the river to become a torrent. In addition to this, Lieutenant Christopher Schultz also said that the 20 to 26 mile per hour wind speeds caused a stronger water current, allowing Angela Hanway to float as far as 3 miles from where she was first originally disposed. Lieutenant Christopher Schultz also shared with us that some of Angela's belongings were found in a wooded area by Buck Creek near Old Reed Park in 2021. Those belongings included her purse with the identification card and other generic common personal belongings inside. We believe that this location could be a secondary location where Angela Hanway's body could have been disposed.
Suspects or persons of interest.
The first person that we researched was Thomas Jason Roberts. As shown on the screen, he was convicted of strangulating and assaulting Angela Lee Hanway on July of 2004. However, we cannot find any additional evidence linking them to the cases of Angela Hanley or the other victims. This led us to look into additional potential suspects. We first came across the name Prentice Rashawn Hare because of articles from Springfield Sun linking him to the cases of Angela Lee Hanaway, Buffy Jo Freeman, and Angela Kilgore. He was reported to have been in Springfield, Ohio from 2006 to 2008. It is a good possibility that Prentice Hare was a pimp and or drug dealer to prostitutes. Prentice Hare was born on March 25, 1981 in Neptune, New Jersey. He is a black male who is about 6'4" and 260 pounds. He immediately went to Rutgers College, where he was a defensive end, after graduating from Asbury Park High School in New Jersey. He studied Italian business management, psychology, and massage therapy at 4 different universities in New Jersey.
Conviction.
Donald Lee Walton Jr., currently 63 years old, commonly known as Duck, was a resident of Springfield, Ohio from the time frame of 1971 to 2017. While we are unsure of the exact date that Donald met Prentice, in an interview he claimed that he met Prentice in either 2005 or 2006. Both Prentice Hare and Donald Walton consistently had multiple prostitutes at their respective houses. Due to Donald's age, his friendship with Prentice Hare, and his lengthy criminal record, we believe that he could be a person of interest in the killing of the earlier victims and potentially groom Prentice Hare. It is a good possibility that Donald Walton was either a pimp and or drug dealer to prostitutes. Prentice Hare is believed to have fatally strangled and wrapped Michael Frazier's body in a rug in Jacksonville, Florida on July 11, 2015, because he took Tiffany Chambers. In addition to this, Prentice Hare was convicted of strangulating Giselle Mumford in Springfield, Ohio on December 4, 2015, because of a dispute over drugs that occurred at 12 South Light Street, which was also the house of Donald Walton. Prentice and Donald then dragged Deshawn's body next door behind Main Stop Food Mart, where he was later found.
Prentice Hare was convicted of killing Tiffany Chambers in 2015. She was a resident of Jacksonville, Florida, with similar characteristics to Buffy Jo Freeman, Angela Mary Kilgore, and Angela Lee Hanaway.
Tiffany Chambers was brought up to Springfield, Ohio, and fatally strangled by Prentice Hare on July 16, 2015, behind 144 West Pleasant Street, while Carmela Rivera, Prentice's friend, and Hannah Whitman, Prentice's girlfriend, kept watch. She was killed because she was a witness to the murder of Michael Frazier. Prentice then made Hannah Whitman poke at Tiffany's eyes until they turned black. They then moved the body to Greene County, Ohio, and placed it in the woods. On May 1st, 2016, almost a year after the date she was last seen, her skeletal remains were recovered scattered along Elam Road near Xenia, Ohio.
Prentice already convicted of killing Tiffany Chambers, Michael Frazier, and Deshawn Mumford was reported to have strangled or raped 6 additional victims, along with the youngest being 15.
As a result of Prentice Hare's violent tendencies, we decided to look into disorders from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or the DSM-5, that corresponded with his personality and actions. Through our research, we believe that Prentice could have antisocial personality disorder. This disorder is almost exclusively diagnosed in men serving time for violent crimes. They are manipulative, charming, and of high intelligence. They show little to no remorse, sympathy, or empathy to those they hurt or to law enforcement. As a result of these qualities, we believe that Prentice Hare is also a psychotic killer. As said by Christopher Schultz, he is not a serial killer, he is a mafia hitman, not a serial killer. Prentice didn't plan out his killings like a serial killer would. Rather, he spontaneously killed out of rage. Because Prentice made it known that he could do whatever he wanted to anyone, whether they gave him a reason or not.
With interviews regarding his personality and psychopathic acts, we question why Prentice chose Springfield, Ohio. And this short clip is of Prentice explaining himself, in addition to Carmela Rivera referring to the path where Prentice disposed of bodies.
I lived in Springfield. That was one of the most comfortable places I ever lived. And when it came time to go someplace else, I didn't want to be anywhere else except Springfield.
I didn't run into anybody that you knew from the first time you was here.
Yeah. He seemed like he's real white, blue eyes. He said he did stuff with him,
And kill people with one?
with one.
But you said that you guys were near a what?
It's the river.
Okay, so you're
The
near.
river, by Burnett is looking for a trail, park, I mean, like
Okay.
trails
What did he say he did there?
that he killed a girl. That was his spot, because there's nothing around.
Connection.
In addition to the connection of Springfield, Ohio, the victim's Prentice Hare, we also made connections between the victim's injuries. As a result of Deshaun having pulmonary congestion because of heavy drug use and trauma to the chest being another cause of this condition, we believe that Angela Hanway, Buffy Freeman, and Angela Kilgore could have had pulmonary congestion because they were all known drug users who potentially died in violent ways. Deshaun Humford and Buffy Joe Freeman were also found with small abrasions of the neck and forehead, in addition to having petechiae around the eyes. Petechiae is caused by increased blood pressure in the eyes, which occurs when the veins in the neck, but not the arteries, are compressed, such that the blood cannot flow back to the heart. As a result of Angela Hanway most likely being strangled, we believe that she could have also had petechiae around her eyes as well. According to Buffy Freeman's case file, her hyoid bone was broken. According to Tiffany Chambers' case file, she was found without her hyoid bone. The hyoid bone is a very fragile bone that is located near the jaw. It is easily broken when the neck has endured some form of trauma. As a result of the common similarities between how these victims died, we believe that Angela Hanway's hyoid bone could have also been broken. In addition to similarities with the way these women were killed and the tendency of Prentice Hare to kill with his bare hands, we would also like to point out the facts that Angela Kilgore and Angela Hanway possibly knew each other because of them both working in the medical field in the Springfield, Ohio area. Their involvement and nursing could have also possibly started their drug use. While we did not go into much detail about this within the presentation, Prentice Hare had a tendency to hang out with older people like Donald Walton. Such people could have groomed his violent tendencies and possibly helped to familiarize himself with the area of Springfield, Ohio. Prentice reportedly showed up to the house of Buffy Joe Freeman after she was killed and ate dinner with her family. Hannah Whitman, Prentice's girlfriend, has very similar characteristics to Angela Hanway, Angela Kilgore, and Buffy Freeman, as she is too white with light hair and light eye color.
Speculation of Prentice committing a homicide behind an abandoned building potentially connects him to Angela Kilgore, whose body was found in a cistern behind an abandoned building.
You were talking about killing anybody?
Yeah, he said, I think there was a girl or something that he killed. And he said,
Out here before he
believe
left.
that.
Okay, did he talk about that? What did he say about that?
No, she was a prostitute.
Did he say how he killed her?
Not really. I think it was in a house, abandoned house.
A female witness, Dusty McAllister, reports being with Angela Hanway, Prentice Hare, and an unknown male the night of Angela's death at Forest Lake and fishing. Dusty went to police in 2017, stating that she saw Prentice Hare strangle Angela, but the unknown male witness denies being there. When we visited Springfield, Ohio, we realized that important locations in these cases were closer together than we originally thought. West Main Street, where Prentice and Donald lived, also included Klosterman's Bakery, where Prentice worked, Main Stop Food Mart, Night Owl Tavern, and a soup kitchen where they frequently ate. This road had everything these men needed. Some of our victims even went missing and or were found on this road or very close by. While we do not want to accuse Prentice Hare of killing these women, we believe that these similarities linking them to Buffy Joe Freeman, Angela Marie Kilgore, and Angela Lee Hanway are suspicious. We would like to reiterate that these women were not just prostitutes and drug abusers. The lifestyle they fell into does not define how they should be remembered. These women were good people who got wrapped up with the wrong group.
Springfield has one of the highest overall crime rates of any United States city. The city's overall crime rate is 136% higher than the overall crime rate in Ohio.
We began our research understanding that we do not have the ability to solve these cases. Our goal was to spread awareness and create an understanding between society and the victim. We are hoping that through the publicity of these cases, they will finally get the recognition they deserve.
If anyone has information pertaining to these cases, whether you believe that information would be beneficial or not, please do not hesitate to contact us or the Springfield City and Clark County Police Departments.
Unfortunately, due to time, we don't really have time to answer questions, but we will be outside at the front after the presentations if you would have any questions. Thank you, guys.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Liam.
I'm Mikey.
I'm Nick. I'm Luke. And our case is over Raymond Wells III. So Raymond was like any typical 18-year-old boy. He loved to hang out with friends. He loved to play video games with friends. He had a very loving relationship with his mom, but of course he would always fight with his mom, and he would sometimes, get into it. And he always had a place to go just in case. And like I said, he had loving friends. And on the night of June 28th, he was riding around with some of his friends when, he was thinking nothing was going to happen, when all of a sudden he didn't know that ride would be his last.
So who was Raymond Wells? Raymond was more of a quiet guy. He didn't go out much. He was more of a guy who stayed in, played video games. He didn't get into much of the trouble. He was in a gang, but he wasn't involved in any of the crimes from what they had said. He was a ladies' man, but he did have a girlfriend at the time. He was actually working for his GED, trying to get out of the gang.
So victimology. So Raymond lived with his mom and sister. He'd typically go in between the houses whenever his mom would get on him for not doing his chores. They lived very close by, so it's easy for him to get to the houses. He also played video games with his friends. He would sit in his mom's living room and play with one friend in particular in the gang. And he had close relationships with the gang leader. They lived close by to each other, and the gang leader would constantly go to his house, talk to his mom and sister. His dad was still alive, however, his parents were divorced, so he didn't see him very much.
So what happened on the night of June 28th, 1999? In Sharonville, Ohio, on Sharon Woods Court around 2 a.m., Raymond suffered 27 stab wounds, and he was thrown out of the car. He was then ran over and dragged under the car roughly 70 feet. While everything in Sharonville, there was a well-known hangout spot located just across the street where the murder occurred. This lounge was called Zavo's. It's a sports lounge, bro. And where he was killed, right, mentioned before, Sharon Woods Court right there. It was like, farther in towards the cul-de-sac, like farther towards the end. That's where his body was discovered. And just so you guys know, this warning is the next slide. It's a little bloody and gory. So if you want to look away, you can.
So a little bit about the crime scene. As you can see here, the roads were very narrow, and it was a little cul-de-sac, so it was very hard for them to turn around. And like Luke said, it kind of took place right at kind of the end of the cul-de-sac. So if you If you look kind of right towards the end, there's a little bit of a circle that was a possibility where they turned around in. But that circle is very narrow and it's very small, so it likely would have taken 2 attempts for them to get around. The blood on the ground, as you can see right down here, it does indicate to us that Raymond was on the ground or struggling to get up at the time when he was struggling. Our possibility was that if he was standing up at the time when he was ran over, he would have flipped over the car and there wouldn't have been as much of bloody streaks as you can see right here. And then as you can see here, this is the turn in the road into the cul-de-sac.
So some of the weird things from the scene, Raymond's shoes were propped up. They were not found on his body. They had very little blood on them, which is strange considering how many times he was stabbed and the blood loss that he suffered. They were not found too far from his body. Raymond was also dragged 70 feet by the car. There's, as you can see, the streak of blood from Raymond, and then you can see where he got up. Raymond's shirt was also stained red. At the time, he was wearing a yellow shirt, but when he was found, it was completely stained red with his blood.
So the police investigation was a very hard process. They interviewed a lot of people, gang members, girlfriends, family. They did arrest somebody at the time, a 16-year-old, but since he had an alibi, they couldn't charge him with anything. But there was not much evidence, so it was very difficult to figure out what had happened that night.
So our investigative process, reaching out, we initially had some issues getting in touch with some of the close family members of Raymond. Thankfully, we did have success though, speaking to one of the detectives, getting most of our information from. The interviews, we had a number of them, good and bad, but we found success once again with Chris Wilson, the detective I mentioned before. Some of the roadblocks we experienced, we had problems trying to connect with Raymond's close family members, we could use most of the information that would be helpful, but obviously we can't get them to get in contact with us. And also back in 1999, DNA was very outdated as known. It's not as advanced as it is now. So there wasn't any luck convicting anyone of the use of DNA.
So some of the motives. Raymond's girlfriend at the time, the gang leader was very interested in his girlfriend and wanted to be with him or with her. He wanted to be with Raymond's girlfriend. Leaving the gang, Raymond was also trying to leave the gang. He was working on his GED to join the military, and he was also starting to hang out with other people. He wasn't around the gang as much as he used to be.
So potential last known whereabouts. The apartment complexes believe that he was picked up the night of the murder, and then Zavos, like Luke had said before, was a spot that they would hang out frequently and was right down the street from where he was murdered. And it's a sports bar, lounge, and grill, so it would probably be open late at night because he was murdered at 2:30 a.m. around there when the police were called. So he could have definitely been there that night.
So the details of the car that we think were involved in the murder. So there were 2 cars that we do suspect were used. One is a 1981 Buick Regal, and the second one is a 1989 Buick Riviera. As you can see here, both cars are very little. I don't want to knock on my teacher here, but if you look at the top left, he's not really a tall guy. And as you can see here right in the picture, his head is actually grazing the top of the car. And as you can see also in here, it's kind of hard to tell, but there was little to no legroom in these types of cars. So that does suspect to us that the people that were involved in this type of murder, they were not big people. They were probably around the height 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", and they also weren't bulky. They were a little bit more skinny. And then we do suspect that there was about 3 to 4 people in the car at this time. The reason why we picked 4 people, because if you look inside in the Buick right in here, there is a front middle seat, which would have had easier access to Raymond, and it also would have helped kind of holding him down in the process of the stabbings. However, if it was in the Riviera, it would have been a problem just because there wasn't that front middle seat. So we suspect that there was 3 people just because it would have been hard to fit 2 people in that backseat without trying to, when you're stabbing someone, like, when you're going over the top like this, you have a flight risk of almost hitting the person that you're sitting next to.
So Sherwood Woods was a park right by where Raymond was killed. The entrance to the park is about one stop down from the cul-de-sac that he was murdered in. Sherwood Woods is about 730 acres of forest and lake. So it's a heavily wooded area, and we suspect that they might be trying to take Raymond there to possibly kill him and dump the body.
And now we would like to say thank you, especially to Detective Wilson in this process, because he was very cooperative to us, and he was very open to our questions, and he didn't shy away from anything. We'd also like to thank the Sharonville Police Department for helping us in this process and getting a hold of Detective Wilson. If you have any information or any questions, you can always contact Detective Wilson. His email is right down here. And if you just want to contact the Sharonville Police Department, their phone number is right down here. And we do know that some people are not comfortable with reaching out to the police. So if you'd like to contact us, our information is right down here. And now we'd like to open it up to questions.
Where do you think Raymond was in the vehicle when he was attacked?
So we believe that Raymond was in the front seat only because most of the stab wounds were in his back to the left side and in the chest. So that's why we believe that if he was in the Regal, it would have been easier with that front middle seat to hit him in the front. And then as he was trying to get out, that's where they got the majority of the stab wounds in the shoulder and the back on the left side.
And to add on to that, when they interviewed other people, they said that Raymond always sat in the front seat when he drove the car, so it was more than likely that he was in the front seat that night.
What gang was Raymond in?
Raymond was a part of the Crips.
What's the theory of the detective, the Sharonville detective, and how is this stuff into his perspective?
His theory is very similar to ours. We had multiple conversations with our detective, and he kind of bounced his ideas off of us, and he kind of showed us the way he went first at the investigation, and kind of showed us his leading steps that he went through. Of course, we cannot mention any names, and just for our safety and other people's safety that were involved in the case.
Yeah, that's a question I have. When you start digging, do you feel like, pardon the pun, somebody's walked across your grave? Like, do you ever have a feeling like I might be opening Pandora's box here?
There's always the possibility that someone of the wrong caliber can get a hold of this and know that you're kind of digging into their information and they don't want you to. But we would like Mr. Hubbard kind of said at the start, we're trying to bring light to these cases, and we're trying to help these families get a little bit more closure and with the closure that they also deserve. So it's just more about focusing on that, and that's just kind of like an afterthought for us.
So was the victim's family hesitant to speak to you because they know something?
They did. The mother did not want to speak at all. She had told the police that her point of contact would be the sister, which Raymond did split where he lived. So he lived with his mother and he also lived with his sister. I'm guessing his mom was getting on his butt about something to go over to his sisters. So his mom did not want to be talked to. We tried to reach out, but we didn't get anything back. And we also were not able to get in contact with his sister either.
I think some of that is because the family members go through this constantly, and many of them don't want to talk about it anymore. And especially when you're talking about high school students and a teacher, they're not really excited about that at times. Many times, family members, some are really open to it, and others just don't want to talk about it anymore.
So where is the girlfriend now? Yeah.
We were not able to locate the girlfriend.
I've talked to the girlfriend.
Is she still in the area?
She still lives in the general area where this took place back then. I wasn't the original, obviously I wasn't the original investigator on this case. It was reopened a couple years ago.
So you charged a 16-year-old, correct? And then he was let go?
Yeah.
He had an alibi.
In all honesty, it wasn't really an alibi. I can't really say, but He probably shouldn't have been arrested to begin with. But that doesn't, it still doesn't mean he might not have been involved.
Was that person a part of the gang?
Yes.
Was anybody over 21 in this?
I don't think so, no. Off the top of my head, no. The gang leader wasn't even, I think he was 20.
And isn't a stabbing like a particularly personalized way to kill somebody?
Correct.
How many stabbings?
27.
Somebody was angry.
Thank you. Nice job.
Murdered inside row.
To this day, her killer has not been caught, and her car is still missing.
And why her life was taken.
Young and early in her life, and just trying to find her way, you know what I mean? Trying to raise her kids.
Just want justice for my mom. So I just want her to have a voice and somebody to say something.
So when Keisha was a very kind and loving mother of 2 kids. She was 28 years old at the time that she was murdered, and she lived in Walnut Hills. She worked for Anthem, which was a well-known insurance company, and she kept a strong relationship with her kid's father, and because they were no longer together when she was murdered.
The 911 call was made around 9:10 p.m. on March 10, 2006 by Lakeisha's brother Keith, and he was dropping her kids off at her house, and her daughter Jamila walked into her bedroom and found her mom dead in her bed. Lakeisha had been strangled to death and held superficial stab wounds all over her body, and her car was also stolen, which is the burgundy 1991 Pontiac Bonneville SSE, and still has not been found to this day.
So Keisha was a very social and outgoing person. Was always open to meeting new people. Wasn't afraid to put herself out there. So she was all over online chat rooms, meeting new people, and that could have left her open to meeting the not right kind of people, people with different intentions as her, not looking for just a good friendship or relationship. So we think that could have left her open to meeting someone with harmful intentions. So Fox 19 News reporter Jessica Schmidt reached out to Mr. Hubbard and asked if any of his students would be willing to look into this case, and he did. So we first started just by Googling to get basic knowledge and details of what happened that night. And then after that, we started looking at social medias to try to find any family members or friends or anyone who was connected to Lakeisha. So here we have some social media accounts through Facebook. On the left, we have Keith, her brother, who you saw in the video earlier. And then you have on the right, you have Tina, which was her best friend at the time. And then in the middle, you have Jamila, which is her daughter. And when we first started reaching out to people, Jamila was the first one that I started to talk to because she was actually the one who walked in and saw her mom's body. But she was really young at the time. She was only 8. So when we talked to her, like a lot of the information was just stuff that she had heard from like family members and just outside people. But she did get us in touch with Jaleisha, which was Lakeisha's cousin, and she was really like working with detectives a lot throughout the case, so she was able to give us like a lot of information before we had even talked to a single detective like ourselves. And then, so when we actually finally got to talk to the police department, we were able to talk to Detective Kelly, and we were able to go down to the station, look through the case file, and we were able to see pictures of like the crime scene and go through like files of persons of interest and learn more about like those kind of people, like what they were doing at the time.
So this is where Lakeisha lived at the time. It was unfortunately torn down because it no longer exists. And Lakeisha's only neighbors were an elderly couple that lived kind of on the bottom, right beneath her room.
I'm sorry, I forgot, but there is blood the next couple of slides. I was supposed to give a warning, but.
So this is her bed where she was found, and she's found with her head towards the foot of the bed and I think towards the head, so she's upside down. And the sheets and comforter was completely taken off, which we believe happened after she was killed, and then she was placed back on the bed after the fact. And she also did not have any clothes on, so they did do a rape kit. However, the results are inconclusive, so it is possible that the suspect tried to stage the rape. And you can see the comforter that is brought up in the corner of Lakeisha's room. So we think that they either forgot to take it with them, or they just didn't have enough hands to carry it, because all of Lakeisha's towels were also gone, which we think they cleaned up with those, and then carried those and the sheets out. And the interesting thing about this case is the way that it was cleaned up. So Lakeisha's body had been completely covered with some sort of cleaning solution or water. And you can see the picture to the right is the underside of her mattress. And you can see all the liquid that had seeped through. And she was still wet. She was still wet when she was found, which again was between 9 to 10 p.m. on March 10th. And detectives think that she was killed before 8 a.m. that morning because she normally gets up early and goes to work. However, she wasn't there that day, which was not normal for her. And this bucket mop was found in her apartment, which is a possible item that they could have cleaned up with. But they tested the water for blood, they tested the gloves, the mop, and the results were inconclusive, and they didn't get anything from that. They also tested this knife that was in her kitchen sink, but the results were inconclusive again, and it could have just been a dirty sink knife. But we did get information from a relative that Lakeisha did sleep with a knife under her pillow. And there wasn't really a specific reason for this. It was more just a safety or family thing. There were a couple other people in her family that did this as well. And when the officers got to the scene, the knife was gone. So we think that that's what they used on her, and then they took that with them when they left.
So our first person of interest, he has like a really violent record. He has 4 domestic violence related violence charges, and then 2 felony assault charges, along with a couple other smaller charges. And at the time of her murder, he was a Cincinnati Reds baseball player in their farm system, meaning he was a AA player. He wasn't actually on the big show yet, but he was very violent and was questioned a lot in multiple other cases. But they were talking around the time of her death, and he owed her a small amount of money, around $50 to $100, they said. We also called her 2 to 3 times that night, but we never got any information if she was able to answer, or if she did, how long the conversation was. And then this email right here, it's actually a chat between Lakeisha and her best friend, telling her about how she, one of the guys she was talking to questioned her about locking her door at night with this chain. And she said that she was scared of this
the guy she was talking to at the time, because he was very violent, very aggressive with her and other women. And then, so he also he played in the men's softball league because he was no longer part of the Reds organization. We can assume that was because of his criminal activities, but so he had to go down to Tennessee like the following day, and he usually like hitched a ride from teammates or friends, but people say they just remember him sort of just showing up out of nowhere, and then he rode back home with his teammates. So that doesn't mean he necessarily took her car. He could have just gotten a bus or something else like that, but it was weird because he never really did that. So I know people like kind of question him. And then our second person of interest, he's actually the opposite of the first one. He has no record at all, but he had stronger feelings towards Lakeisha. At the time of her death, like they were like in a, according to people, that they were in like more of a serious talking relationship. And so we think that he could have like gotten triggered by they seen Lakeisha talking to all these other people on like chat rooms. And the interesting thing is actually just over a year ago, he saw Jamila, Lakeisha's daughter, out in public, and he went up to her and like they talked or whatever, and he told her like, "You look so much like your mom. Like I still miss her so much." And I saw the picture of her, which is weird because according to like Lakeisha and her best friends like Chas, they weren't in that serious of like a relationship at all. And so for him to still be saying all this stuff now, like almost like 20 years later, it is a little odd. And yeah.
The only thing that can really be done now is having DNA samples from the scene be sent to different labs, and in hopes that like the new technology that they have now that they didn't used to have will hopefully find different results.
Lastly, we just want to say thank you to everyone who helped us with our case and was willing to talk to us, especially Jamila, Jaleisha, and Detective Kelly. They were all very kind and helpful with all the information that they gave us. And if anyone else has any information, you can contact Detective Kelly. Her information is on the screen. And if not, you can contact us at any of our MHS cold case social medias. My name is Piper.
I'm Tyler. I'm Jason.
Thank you guys so much for watching our presentation. We will now answer any questions if anyone has any.
So the fact that she was found in her bedroom, and obviously you guys remember seeing the picture, and the person that had to spend a lot of time there, what does that tell you about your suspects? Which one is most likely to do that?
We would say the second person of interest because, well, the first one, like I said, he was more violent, and you think if he was mad, he would be like aggressive, sloppy. He wouldn't have really taken like as much time to like clean up the scene as the second one. Because the second one, like, he wasn't violent at all, so it could have just been like a spur of the moment, and then after he was like, oh crap. And so he like took a lot of time to like clean it up. There was not like the DNA that they found was like a small like strand of hair, and all came back inconclusive. But
yeah. And we do know that Lakeisha did know them for a fact because there were no signs of forced entry, and they did spend a lot of time with Lakeisha, whoever it was.
Thank you. Good job.
About 11 miles southwest of the city of Chillicothe, Ohio, is a town called Knoxville. Now, the history of the town's name has been debated for a long time, but one thing is for sure. Knoxville's name serves as a visual reminder of the history of violence in the town. This whole area is known for rough behavior and crime, and has actually inspired several books and even a Netflix film called Devil All the Time, which highlights the negative attributes of Knoxville. Just 11 miles away is the city of Chillicothe, and what Chillicothe lacks in the name, it makes up for in 4 rampage. With an increase in drug use, robbery, assault, and home invasion rates in Chillicothe have risen to a crime rate of about 46 crimes per 1,000 residents. For comparison, Cincinnati's crime rate is about 40 crimes per 1,000 residents. This means that Chillicothe, which is 8 times smaller than Cincinnati and in a semi-rural area, has a comparable crime rate to that of a large city. For many years, the opinion of Chillicothe has been extremely negative, and the citizens of the city have suffered at the hands of criminals for too long.
On the early morning hours of Sunday, October 16, 2011, law enforcement responded to a situation occurring at 14546 Acre Center, located along the busy highway between Chillicothe and Knoxville. Intending to bring her grandfather McDonald's breakfast, a young woman and her husband stumbled upon something much more tragic. Upon opening the front door, smoke poured out of the house while 2 passersby helped to pull off the homeowner, Harry W. Smith. Harry had suffered severe blunt force trauma to the head and unfortunately had already passed away. Despite investigation, private detective work, professional help, 12 years later, the murder of Harry W. Smith is still unsolved. Hi, I'm Sophie White. This is Katie, Eleanor, Gabby, and today we are talking about the tragic events that took place on October 16, 2011. The murder of Harry W. Smith, an 89-year-old father, grandfather, great-grandfather, veteran, and loved community member. We chose Harry for a multitude of reasons. One, we felt extremely saddened that someone could have brutally murdered an elderly person in such a manner. And we felt drawn to the joyful personality and impact that he had in his community. Harry was born on February 25th, 1922 in Chillicothe, Ohio, and enlisted into the Navy the day after Pearl Harbor. And he served in World War II, but eventually was discharged on September 29th, 1945. His registration card and dog tag are both pictured above on the screen, and Harry had many friends in the military and was known as a joyful, funny guy. After leaving the military, Harry began working at a newspaper located in his hometown of Chillicothe, Ohio. He had 2 children with his wife, Opal, and stayed in Chillicothe for the majority of their life. His children had children and became a proud grandfather. In his retirement, he became Chillicothe Walmart's first ever greeter, coining the nickname Grandpa Walmart from his community. Harry worked at Walmart for 6 years, between 1995 and 2001. He was known as community for being a kind man that anyone could talk to. His family also noted that he didn't work at Walmart for financial gain, but rather for the social aspect. We found Harry through the Ohio Attorney General's unsolved homicide database. We began our search by looking up his name on Google. This is quite difficult as Harry Smith is a pretty common name. We adjusted our search techniques and through higher specification began to find articles. We started on newspaper.com and found newspaper articles. And we also used Harry and his wife's obituaries to find the names of family members. We also made an interactive family tree and then also used Harry and his wife's obituaries and then used that to make a composite list of names, phone numbers, emails, addresses, social media, and other important information. Now we're going to Harry's living habits and the details of his death. His dog named Dolly, otherwise his wife Opal had passed away months prior to his nursing home. He also rode a mobile scooter, but otherwise he was still able to get around pretty well. As a veteran, Harry did own a gun,